You Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here. It's time for a Orns observation. This is about Watford Football Club in particular, and I had written on this very day, April the 11th, 2022, a Orns observation at ornswfc.wordpress.com about Watford Football Club and the problems and issues that have arisen over the last few years, but particularly the communication issues that have cropped up, certainly this season and some of the previous seasons, but especially this season that Watford have been in the Premier League and they are soon to be leaving the Premier League because, in my view, what goes up must go down. That's the title of the Ewan's observation that I wrote in the wfc.wordpress.com website that I have. I have applied a link, attached a link to this video that you will see in the description section. So you can click on that link and read the article in full. What I'm going to be saying here is really going to be a very abbreviated version of the article, but really the issue is this, and I think you as Watford fans know this very well as fellow Watford fans, that just at the end of last week, April the 8th, specifically last week, the Watford Football Club hierarchy and the PR folks, the communication folks, put out an announcement on the Watford FC website that said that there was a supporters committee that had been formed, and they enumerated the list of people in it, and said that the committee would be meeting in secret. They had met at the end of March of this year, and that one of the conditions of these meetings were that they were all going to be confidential meetings, and they were going to be everyone who did meet was going to be sworn to utmost secrecy, and in a memorandum of understanding and all the rest of it, that they could not divulge anything that was communicated in the meeting to the outside world. And so when that announcement came down last week, I thought about that and thought, this does not smell right. And while I welcome the formation of a group, I think one of the things that I did look at twice was the words secrecy and the words memorandum of understanding, because that should never be something that a football club does to its fans or to people who are supporters of the club. That just should never happen. And as I have said in numerous fora, including on Twitter, it is not a good look for the football club, especially the football club, this football club, Watford Football Club, that has all these communications problems, to now be forming supporters groups who are meeting in secret. That is not good for communication. In fact, that's the very opposite thing you'd want to be doing in terms of open communication. If you're telling people that they must not divulge anything in a meeting, that is sending extremely the wrong message. It's a bad look for everybody. It makes the people in the group look bad, even when they don't have any control over what messaging you are sending out after the fact. You've put them in a real bad spot there, and it's not right. It's very unbecoming of the football club. It flies in the face and in the spirit of Graham Taylor, and of course the man, the myth, the legend, Sir Elton John. It flies in the face of both of them, and the late Graham Taylor would never have stood for this. He would have wanted openness and transparency. That was what he stood for all the time he was at Watford Football Club. Elton John stands for that right now, although he is no longer really connected to Watford, except he is the life chairman, honorary life chairman, and he still checks in on Watford, but he doesn't have any power and control over the decision making that gets done at the club. And when he did have power and had decision making control and was the chairman of the club in the 70s and 80s, he would never have gone for what's going on at Watford Football Club right now. This football club has gone so far away in some respects from the values that Graham Taylor, Elton John, and Luther Blissett have espoused. It's just such a shocking 180-degree turn. And I know that there are people who will say, well, it was worse in these days and these days. I know. I've been around the club. I know it was worse in years past, but that is not an excuse. That should never even be uttered in this situation, because now there is something on the table that is problematic, and there's a problem right in front of us, and it needs to be addressed, put out in the open, and solved and fixed out in the open. It really does not make sense to be saying how things were worse under this particular regime or that one when there's a problem in front of you now. It doesn't solve anything to be talking about how things were worse in other years. And then the question becomes, if they were worse in other years, what were you doing to try to make them better? Because that's what I would ask anyone who brings up to me, it was worse in these years and those years. As I said, I am keenly aware of how bad it was in other years and other situations. It was horrible. But that does not solve this problem here today. And each and every one of us as Watford fans have to get involved here and ask to get on this committee, the supporters group. I'm telling you, we got to do this. This club is definitely going in a direction that is not the direction that you or me or a number of other Watford fans, many, many Watford fans, would like. We do not want to see this club going the way it's going. There's no plan. The board doesn't have a clue on what it's doing. Everything is slipshod. Everything is ramshackle. There's no real plan at all. It's a 5-minute plan. There is no sense of a 5-year plan for this club. At least if there was before, that has been torn up and thrown away. If new players come to Watford Football Club and they ask, okay, what's your plan here at Watford Football Club? I don't think the board would be able to articulate that to them at this minute. I don't think so. The communication issues at this club are serious. And when I have fellow Watford fans telling me in Orns WFC Twitter spaces, or telling me on Twitter itself in terms of replies, or telling me in any number of areas that they are disillusioned and disconnected from this club, that's a serious problem. I don't care how bad something was years ago. This is a serious problem when you got some of your fan base telling you that they are so disillusioned and disconnected from the club. They've never felt a wider gulf between them and the club. That's a very serious problem. And when you've got people in the Watford hierarchy who compound that problem with pre-selected supporters groups members and sending out press releases to the world saying that all of this is communicated in secret and it can't be divulged, you have further exacerbated the problem. You've poured more gasoline on an already lit fire. You've already poured more gasoline on a fire when you do something like that. That's reckless. And it makes, as I said before, it makes the people who are going in there with, I think, the best of intentions. It makes that group of people, those groups of people who were mentioned as the members of this group, it makes them look horribly bad, as if they somehow consented or assented to all the secrecy. And if they didn't, and then on the back end, you're going in and saying, well, in a press release, oh, well, you know, this is all going to be secret. That is a horrible way to do things. You're throwing people under the bus. And that's the way the fan base at large, at least a sizable number of that fan base, feels about the club to begin with, because the communication is so poor. I mean, I think it's worse than the way Watford have played this season, this communication that Watford Football Club have gone about doing. And certainly there are things the board have done that I think are positive, such as the season ticket freezing and the lowering of the price for next season. I think that's very good. And that will bring some of the Watford fan base on side. But gestures like these have to continue, and you have to bring the fans in, and you cannot alienate these fans. We don't want alienation. We want to know what's going on. We want to have a connection with this club. We want to have an affinity to the players. We want to have an understanding that what this club is doing and the folks in the hierarchy are doing are in and is in the best interests of Watford Football Club and the community that supports it and the larger global community that supports this club. There are fans of this club all over the globe. And it's essential that you are proactively communicative to the fan base. It is essential that you are proactively communicative about what you're doing. It is essential that you are proactively communicating to the supporters and telling them what your vision is. We get occasional program notes. We get occasional end of season messages or beginning of season messages, but nothing in between for the most of the vast majority of the season. Teams losing game after game at the Vic. You lost 11, 12 home games, lost 12 home games at the Vic and counting. 9 consecutive and 12 overall at home this season, and nothing from the CEO. Nothing about it. Very, very little. Very little. And the owner, forget it. He won't say boo. He'll fire managers left, right, and center, but he won't say boo when these things are happening around the club. The intern situation, fully paid, excuse me, let me correct myself. Full-time interns getting no money, not getting paid. Where's a peep out of the owner, a peep out of the CEO? Could we hear from him about this? Clearly the steam. Could we hear a single word? This is not good enough. And this is what so many Watford fans are upset about. And no, I'm not blowing anything out of proportion. I'm not exaggerating anything. There are genuine fans of this club. And by genuine, I'm talking about people who are not trolls or bots or Luton Town fans in disguise. I'm talking about real human beings who care about Watford Football Club, who love this club, who've been supporting this club, whether it's for 10 minutes or, 60 years. And they and I cannot stand what's going on in various aspects of this club. And we can certainly voice our opinions. We can certainly be very passionate about this. But one thing is I don't think name calling is the thing. We cannot be calling names of people. And I mean making, name calling. That is schoolboy stuff. That is schoolgirl stuff. We don't need the schoolboy and the schoolgirl name calling bit. That was something you were supposed to be doing when you were in year 7 or year 8 or something. But after that, you're supposed to grow up a bit. So we don't need to be name calling Scott Duxbury and calling him out of his name. That's not necessary. I think that you can approach people like Scott and you can approach people like him and be direct with him, be honest with him, but don't be rude. There's no need to be swearing at him or anything like that or calling him names. I think that I do think, look, these people are not evil people. I believe that these people do care. I just don't like how they are communicating that they care, because it is not caring when you do the kinds of things that the communications people and others have been doing at this club over the last year or 2 or more, because there have been fans of this club who have been complaining about this for a number of years now. So we have to make our voices heard. And instead of throwing peanuts from the gallery, we actually have to engage. And by engaging, I'm talking about signing up for membership in this supporters group and demanding that all of the proceedings are open and transparent to the wider Watford FC fan and supporter base. That's what we must be demanding. And I don't think there's anything that's problematic about that. We pay so much money for these season tickets, for travel every year, every game going away, staying at hotels sometimes if necessary, family of 4. You're paying all this money out, your hard-earned money. You're going to the Vic, you're buying shirts, you're buying this, you're buying that. The board should be hearing from us. They should be hearing from you. I have made it clear my interest in being part of this supporters group. And I will certainly update people on what happens with that, whether they bring me in or not. But one thing you can be rest assured of, and I've said this already to people directly at Watford, if I'm a member of this club, this stuff has to be open to everybody. I am not in this for me. I'm not in this for any self promotion. I'm in this because I really do believe that we fans need to get a better shake than what we've been getting from this club lately. Yes, the club does some very good things, and I'm proud of it in that way. I'm proud to be a supporter of this club for the many years I've been a supporter of it. I love this club, but I don't like what's happening to various aspects of this club. And I think this Premier League season really is an encapsulation of a lot of that. These proceedings must be open to the Watford fan base. And I mean open. Not with edited transcripts, not with edited anything. It's got to be live and open to everyone. That's really what we need. No one's going to read the whole minutes of a meeting. Yes, it's important to have the minutes out. I think that should happen as well. But that should be only one of the avenues of distribution of transparency here. You need to have this live streamed. We need to have it like just the way that you do inside the hive. Live stream these meetings. Put them on a radio station locally. Live stream the whole thing and put it live on YouTube. Put it on your YouTube channel. You do this with Inside the Hive. You do it on Twitter with Inside the Hive and Facebook or whatever. Do it with these meetings. That's what has to be done as far as I'm concerned. These meetings must be open to all. And that's really the way it has to be here. And there needs to be more transparency and more proactive communication. And I encourage anyone who's a Watford fan watching this video to get involved. I believe the email address is supporters at watfordfc.com. I believe that's it. I don't know exactly. I don't even remember what the email address is, and I sent an email to him. But the fact is that we all have to get involved. Again, I think that this has to happen in a way that everyone gets involved, and certainly the communication has to be open to all. We cannot have closed door meetings and all this kind of thing. That's not something that works well for this club. It certainly flies in the face and in the spirit of the kinds of things that Graham Taylor preached and Elton John stood for and still stands for to this day. Community, family, openness, transparency. CFOT. Community, family, openness, transparency. CFOT. And that's what we need. That's what we need. By the way, 3 of those letters actually can be found in the word Watford. So why don't we collectively, constructively roll up our sleeves, approach this board, and really bring forth the kinds of things we want to see and get answers to the questions that we need to have answered. One of mine is, why has there been such a communication problem? I like to drill down on these things. That's one of my many questions, and also provide some ideas, because I've got a ton of ideas that I would love to share with the Watford hierarchy, a lot of ideas. One of the things I think should have been done, and I think the Watford FC board is going to have some statement. That's what I've been hearing from various quarters in the next few days. And I think they're going to change this because they have heard so much blowback from Watford fans, and understandably so. So keep your voices heard and keep them raised. But one of the things they should have done in the first place is put out an open call to Watford fans in general, just the same way that they do goal of the month and player of the month, and they go on Twitter and they splash out a poll pick the player of the season, or pick the player of the month, or pick the goal of the month, or the goal of the season. They have no trouble doing that. But they didn't think to do that for us when it comes to having a say and talking about the issues of communication that need to be improved between the Watford hierarchy and the fan base. That's what they should have done when it comes to that latter issue. They should have sent out through the social media channels, through his YouTube channel, all the rest of it, that kind of call to us so that we all, bring aboard suggestions. Hey, what kinds of things do you want to see improve Watford fans? What kinds of things would you like us to talk about? When would you like to meet? What kinds of anything like that? If they had done that and said, hey, are you interested in a supporters group? What would you like to do? Would you like to form one yourself? What, instead of doing what they did and then throw these people under the bus like this, and then also engender a lot of resentment and a lot of blowback from the Watford fan base at large. I mean, you've really tanked yourself there, haven't you? All in the name of improving in all in the name of improving communication with the fans, is it? And you've absolutely tonked your goodwill, any semblance of it left, with swaths of the Watford fan base. While there may be some in the Watford fan base who go, oh, I'm not going to say boo. I'm not going to say anything. It was worse some other time ago, so I'm not going to say anything. I mean, that can't be the attitude either. And if there are people with that kind of attitude, well, you need to roll up your sleeves and get involved here and fight for this club. And I'm not exaggerating any of these issues because, as I said before, when you've got a fan base that many members of it say are disenchanted with the club, you better pay attention to that and actually want to listen to those people and have an open forum with people like that, or with anybody in the Watford fan base. You might want to do that rather than cobbling together a group of people and then throwing them all under the bus and telling everyone that it was a secret meeting. You might want to do better. And I think that means you need a fresh set of ideas in that hierarchy. You need a lot more going on. And quite frankly, I think all these supporters groups and all the Watford fans who care about all this matter need to coalesce together. And instead of being a supporters group under Watford's auspices, have our own supporters group, our own collective. That's what we need to do. And then have our meetings with the board instead of having a Watford supporters group, which Watford FC controls. See what I mean? See how that is different? Because if they control that, there are certain strictures and structures and things that they are going to put on that that can limit the effectiveness of the group. Whereas if Watford fans and all of these groups coalesce under a combined collective, one collective, and do our meetings and then go and meet with the board, we are actually much stronger and more effective that way, in my view, at least. Certainly when you consider the fact that this group has already met and the way that the Watford hierarchy or communications folks or both threw them under the bus, that tells you right there that they think a certain way about this group. That tells you right there that they have shown you what they think of you. And it also tells you right there that you don't have any control of any of the proceedings. If you are a supporters group member under the auspices of Watford Football Club, you have to go by their dictates. Whereas if we form a collective together, independent of Watford Football Club, and we say here, we'd like to meet with you. We are 30 organizations strong, and we've got some other concerned Watford fans here. We are a large collective, and this is what we'd like to hear from you. This is what we want to know what's going on. This is what we want to know about this issue and that issue, and the fact that Luther Blissett is being sidelined at this club. Statesman of the club. He's the statesman, Luther Blissett, an absolute Watford living legend, the greatest living ambassador of this club. And we have some questions about why we haven't been told why he's not on this so-called ambassadors list. And we want honest answers. We don't want PR speak. And then we can go through all these issues that we have questions about this intern stuff, about all the rest of it, these promotions, all these, promotions being with corporate companies where we're scratching our heads going, what is this with this airline doing a promotion about dressing up as Americans? Really? I think that the perspective of some at this club has gone way adrift from where Elton John and Graham Taylor and Luther Blissett were. And the fact that Mr. Blissett has been sidelined in such a disgraceful manner, I think tells you everything you need to know. Now, I can speculate, and you, fellow Watford fans, can speculate as well. And we've been doing that. And that's what happens when you don't adequately communicate to your fan base. You're going to have Watford fans like myself, like yourself, like anyone else who is a Watford fan or supporter, speculating about what is going on at that club, what's going on behind closed doors, what the motives are of the people running the club. Because as long as there's no communication, you leave the door open for us to start filling in the gaps, rightly or wrongly. And that is something that only one group of people can fix. And that's the people running Watford Football Club. This has been a Orns observation.